City rail fans. You've tuned in to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of locomotives, rolling stock, and the rich history and current state of railroading. I'll be one of your hosts. My name's Brad Williamson, and our other host is my good friend Patrick Moore. And whether you're a seasoned model railroader, a history buff, or just someone who loves the sound of a passing train, you're in the right place. We're proudly affiliated with the Iron City N-Scale Facebook group, but don't let the name fool you. We cover all scales from Z to G and everything in between. We'll be exploring the vibrant railroading scene of western and central Pennsylvania, from the mighty steel giants of the past to the intricate layouts of today. Expect in-depth discussions, interviews with experts, and plenty of stories from the rails. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and enjoy the Roundhouse Report, a podcast of Iron City, by Iron City, and for Iron City. Hello there, Iron City N-Scalers, and welcome to another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. It's Brad and Pat coming at you here again tonight with another installment of our series called the Office Car Special, the OCS, with our good friends and just super interesting guys, Dave Abeles from the Onondaga Cutoff HO layout, and Todd Treaster from the N-Scale New York, Susquehanna, and Allegheny Pittsburgh division. We have both of those guys who are very accomplished modelers, but also are railroaders. Todd is a retired railroader, worked for a good many years on Conrail and Norfolk Southern, and Dave is a railroader with the New Jersey Transit System. So we'll be having a great discussion with these guys tonight. Before we get into that, though, Pat and I have some news for our Roundhouse Report segment. So, Pat, would you like to start us off tonight?
Yeah, hey, before we get started, I just want to tell everybody it was great meeting everyone. Some really good stories from folks, a lot of folks at Altoona at the show that Brad and I just got finished with said it was their first time there. And because of our show, they came out and participated. So it was really great to see a lot of new faces. We had a lot of new faces, Brad, on the railroad, and they got to run their trains. And at one time, I think we had like 35 people operating or around the layout with Iron City shirts on. It was quite a spectacle. And again, folks, we did not tamper with or add additional names into all the door prizes. But man, we won a lot of door prizes for our members over the weekend. It was kind of funny. A lot of people won. Brad and I didn't win this year. I was a little disappointed, but a lot of our folks won.
Yeah, it is really gratifying, isn't it, to see all those Iron City T-shirts in the place. To think of what this started off as with just the two of us looking for a place to post our layout videos, and now we've got all these new friends. Over 2,000 people, and just the two awesome big. I mean, all the shows we go to we enjoy, but the Altoona N-Scale weekend that we just came from, and the Locomotion weekend at the Carnegie Science Center are kind of our two
go-tos.
If we had to pick marquee events, our two marquee events, I think it's those two. So yeah, it was so great meeting the people who came up to us and said, I'm new to the Iron City and to the Roundhouse Report, and we just enjoy that so much. Words can't even express how great it is when people come up and just tell us how much they enjoy this and how much they enjoy being a part of Iron City in general.
Brad, it's nice to see someone when they got their that they worked really hard on their train to bring it there. A lot of guys weathered their locomotives and cars, and then they got to place it on the layout, take pictures and videos. That to me, that's what makes it really fun, because that person, is proud of their work, and now they get to put on which was a huge layout, Brad. That H that we do is pretty spectacular for T-Track. I mean, we're talking 78 equivalent modules I forget how many, five scale miles or something like that of train track. So it was a lot of fun.
It's a substantial layout, no doubt about it. Yeah. And Brad, we should also mention that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brad. Yeah.
I was going to say we should also mention about Bob Frine. He built a single module for the contest and mailed it across country to us, and we were able to get that module in the layout. And I was really glad because I remembered Bob had asked us to take some pictures or videos of his module in the layout, and I was busy with the command station and everything else because I completely forgot to do that. But thankfully, Iron City East member Nick Wummer took a really nice video of that, and he posted it on our site. He also sent it to me, so I was able to send that to Bob because it had some really good shots of Bob's module in the layout. So a great weekend all the way around, and thanks to Bob for mailing it in, and also thanks for the beverages he sent in for some West Coast beer that we were able to. Some of us were able to partake of on the porch at the station inn in Creston.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, we got Bob a West Penn. A Iron City Penn sticker on his module now, so he's official. And Brad, we set the new record for pizzas eaten at Station Inn, 9 pizzas in 9 minutes. So we did a pretty good job there too.
Yeah,
a bunch of hungry guys.
Pretty fast, didn't they? You bet.
But it was great to have that crowd there.
Yeah, that's always a good time up there. Alex Lang and his crew up there at the Station Inn. I got to give a shout out to Patience, the one of the ladies that works there. They do such a fantastic job with the breakfast and everything else just to make your stay really pleasant. And Norfolk Southern put on a pretty good show for us too while we were up there. So it was just a great weekend all the way around.
So Brad, like always, I'm driving home from the show, and my phone starts exploding. You better get up here. And I did get it there in time, and I missed the Conrail coming through the Heritage units.
Oh, no.
Struck out again. I was like, are you kidding me? This is perfect. I did get my traditional garbage train, though. It came through again.
Just a word of advice to any rail fans out there. If you want to see any of Norfolk Southern's Heritage units, stay far away from Pat because he'll never be there when one of those is there.
No, it's comical. They came and went, and I wasn't there to see them. So, all right, Brad, are we ready to roll into the report? I guess you said I could go first tonight.
Yeah, if that suits you, let's go ahead and do it that way.
Okay, well, let's go into the report. All right, my first one is something new with what we're doing with the Iron City on our page. We have our showcases. We had a great one last week, man. Oh, I couldn't get over all that Lehigh Valley rolling on Ryan's layout. It was just perfect. But we're doing something like a documentary for construction projects on people's layouts. The first one's going to be Todd Treaster, one of our guests tonight. He's going to redo his ET, his Edgar Thomas steel mill. He's going to remove that plant, relay the track to make it more operational, and then he's going to lay the seam back down. He's going to add a bunch of stuff. I don't want to tell too much because I want him to be able to do that. But he's going to do a live event, which will be the day this podcast comes out, this Thursday, and at 8:30. It's going to be live. You don't need a link, and he's going to talk you through his first phase of construction and what he's going to do. Then he's going to do some pictures during the month that he's working on it, and at the very end, he'll give us we'll do another live event with him, and he'll show us how the ET has been rebuilt and how the operation flow goes in there with his trains. So that's going to be a good one. So that's my first one tonight. It's Todd's project layout that will be live this Thursday.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be enjoyable. It's always cool to look in and check in on Todd and see what he's doing. He's a very talented modeler, and it's always nice to see new projects that he takes on. It was neat last year. He shared us various stages of completion of that Lewistown Terrace area where he had some like row houses that he put in, modeled after an actual area of Lewistown, PA, near Burnham where he lives. So that was a neat project, and I'm sure this Edgar Thompson plant project's going to be a neat one too. So yes, that's definitely one worthy of mentioning. The one that caught my eye this week, Pat, was our buddy Chris Ketch, who was a special guest on here with us very early on this year in the podcast. Chris within the last couple years bought I believe his first home. And he just shared with us, so I think it was just today, that he moved his Midland Junction layout to his new home. I guess he had it stored at his parents' place for a while. And he posted a cool picture of it. He's got it set up in his new home, in his new location now. And that's pretty exciting news for Chris. So it's a neat layout he has. It kind of reminds me a little bit. I don't know if it's exactly the same size, but Model Railroader, I don't know, probably 10 or so years ago now, did a project on a hollow core door called the Red Oak line or something like that. But it was based on the Burlington, the CB&Q, which coincidentally is who we use to do a lot of our patch jobs for the West Penn. But they built this layout on a hollow core door, and Chris's Midland Junction looks to me to be about the same size as that and a similar track plan. He also mentioned that he's going to plug his power cab into it to get it running. So you know that Chris is a smart guy when he's doing that. So
right.
Just wanted to give a shout out to Chris, and I'm glad that he was able to get that. I can remember he was unsure what he was going to do with that. I think he thought about maybe selling it at one point, but he does have it at his new home now, and it looks great set up. And hopefully he's having fun running trains on that tonight. And Pat, if I sound a little distracted tonight, I got to tell you why. Some of our buddies in the Iron City chat group, the Iron City leadership chat group, are just lighting up Facebook Messenger right now. So I can just digging in my. So Tom and Kevin, thank you very much for that. You're testing my concentration.
So.
Yeah.
So, Brad, don't laugh too hard. You won't believe who I picked tonight. Another guy moving, Dakota Ziegler.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. He just bought a new home. He's one of our young guns, and he is going through the, oh God, what am I going to do now phase. So he's starting to tear down his old layout, and they'll be moving shortly into the new home, and he's got big plans for his. So I can't wait to see what Dakota's going to do. And Dakota got to come to our show and run trains. And I think he brought a couple of friends with him. We got to meet them. I think one was Andrew, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, big project ahead. Can't wait to watch it. I'm going to be asking Dakota to probably come on and do something like Todd's doing with the planning and construction when he gets into the new home.
Great.
And he gets everything settled. That way he can talk us through, hey, this is how I'm going to do it. I think it's a great way to learn, is to watch someone get from scratch. Like, here's the room, here's my idea, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if any great construction, I know he'll say, here's the yard that Pat Moore forgot to put in his.
There you go.
Yeah, every time, hey, anybody can say, yeah, I'm smart enough to learn from Pat Moore. Do not forget to put the yard in your layout. But that was Dakota. That was my second one, Brad. That he's got a big project ahead of him.
Yeah, and good luck and best wishes to Dakota on that as he starts off in his new venue, his new home there. And I look forward to seeing what he comes up with for that layout that he's going to be building. So my last one, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to the Iron City East guys. We had another small show. It's a relatively new show. It has happened this show twice this year, once back in the spring and then once just this past weekend, the weekend after the Altoona N-Scale weekend. So it was at the Lycoming County Fairgrounds in Hughesville, PA. And Nick Warmer got in contact for us with the gentleman who runs the show and asked him if he would like to have a layout set up at the show. And the guy said, yeah, please do. So we were able to set up there. It was Nick Mummer, as I mentioned, Neil Mones, and myself were there. And we also had Ryan Lamb, who just recently did a showcase for us, was able to make it up from where he lives in hometown, Pennsylvania. It's down fairly near Jim Thorpe, if you're familiar with that area. So he was able to make the trip up and spent the day with us, and we had a great time there. Had a smaller T-track setup, obviously, than what we had at the Altoona show, but I'm going to guess there was probably, if you do single equivalents, I'm sure it was over 20 single module equivalents that we had there. So yeah, we had a good time, and we're hoping to be able to continue coming to that show. So that was my second one, Pat.
Okay. All right, everybody. It's now time to get the pen and paper ready because there's going to be a lot of notes to take if you're listening to an OCS volume, because they're going to be doing a lot of coding. But tonight we make them talk them through it, and Brad and I think, do a pretty good job of telling our host, our guest, that hey, we need help here. Help us out. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. So we'll be right back after this short break. Hey, and welcome back to the OCS Volume 2. We've got a great show tonight. We have two of your favorite guests back for another great volume of great talk and model railroading. And I'll pass it over to Brad so he can introduce everybody this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Welcome once again, everybody, to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, but it's one of our special episodes called the OCS, the Office Car Special. And our special guests for these office car specials are going to be none other than our good friends Todd Treaster and Uncle Dave Abeles. So welcome to another episode, you guys, and thank you so much for being here with us. And I just want to say thanks once again to all our listeners for being here. So let's get the show on the road, Pat. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. As we were telling Dave, and Todd's been through this, we're going through a little bit of our Altoona hangover. But that's a good thing. We've had a lot of trains in the last, I would say, 72 hours. We had a great show. We had a great show, and we had some great folks come up to us and tell us they love the OCS. They love for these guys to get going with their topics and talk it out. And so we got some great questions, I think, this evening to get everybody going. I know Dave and Todd are ready, so let's just get this thing going, and we'll fire away.
Let's just open up the doors. Well, good evening, you guys. This is always a pleasure to be here, and to my friend Todd, man, you sure find a way to keep me smiling these days. I'll tell you.
I give it my best shot. It keeps me smiling too. Trust me. I put a little thing on tonight there with the van and Brad and them watching, and I said I'm going to buy on a brand new SD80 Max. So I think you'll get a kick out of that.
Well, and those are delivered in '96. I want to say
95.
End of 95.
95 into 96, yep.
Yeah, okay. And I remember, being at the Station Inn, and that would have been our second trip out there, late August 1995. And those, the SD80 Max were, you could smell the paint on some of them coming out of Juniata and coming out of EMD.
Yep.
Because those were kit built at Juniata, correct?
They were kit built, and then they come in undecorated also, I believe.
Yeah.
I think they come in as already built, but they painted. I think every one of them were painted to Juniata.
Somewhere I have a picture of one of the, I'm not sure if it was ATPI. And we're going to talk a little bit about symbols tonight, train symbols.
Yeah, that's what they would go out on, the ATPI. And
which was the Altoona to
Altoona
Pittsburgh train.
Conway.
Yep.
And then once they would go out on a PI, whatever.
Sure, to wherever around the system.
Yep. 4128 was one of the demonstrators, and it was at number 8,000. It was painted in maroon, had an electromotive division on it. It's set along the main line on the old main for a couple weeks, and I got pictures of it in the maroon paint, and then it went into the paint shop, got cleaned up, and it come out as 4128.
What was that symbol again, guys?
AT Altoona.
Okay, yeah. For those who aren't familiar with that, and we will get into this more, but the way Conrail did that coding, or whatever you want to call it, for train symbols, the letter where the place where it originated, in this case Altoona, was abbreviated with AT, and then the PI is Conway Yard in Pittsburgh. So if you're not familiar with how that worked, that's it. It's the originating location and then where it terminates. And then this particular train went from Altoona to Pittsburgh, so ATPI.
And Todd will talk more about this as we get into it, because he ran them, and he's if there's a symbol on the Pittsburgh line, our friend Todd Treaster ran it 100%. But Conrail would classify their symbols based on a bunch of different things. The Conrail Historical Society has done a couple nice presentations on this. Ed Kapuscinski and Alex Lang have both done some nice stuff that's available online at the CRHS or at a couple other places. There's also multimodalways.org, spelled all the way out, no spaces, multimodalways.org. Multimodal Ways is an online archive of basically a PDF Adobe Acrobat files where it's a scan of a picture, a map, or a document. And almost the entire Conrail symbology, the freight schedules, are actually listed on there page by page. We use it on the OC whenever we're doing something to change a freight schedule. So the manifest freights, as Brad mentioned, was the first two letters of origin, the second two letters of destination, and then a number at the end, which was the number of the day of the week that it went. So if it was the 19th, it'd be -9.
Yep.
If it was the 1st, it would be -1. If it was the 20th, it would be -0.
Yep.
And AL was Allentown, so Altoona couldn't be AL.
Right.
So AT became Altoona. And a lot like the United States, when you look at your mailing address, you don't always find the first two letters of every state name being the two letter moniker for the post office for the same reason, because you have multiple MAs.
Yep.
And so it's multiple MIs, Michigan and Mississippi, for example. So you'll find that when you look at Conrail manifest symbols, and that's a train, box cars, tank cars, gondola cars, flat cars, some auto racks, perhaps, depending on your era.
Yep.
Some people call them mixed freight, I believe.
Mixed
or
freight.
manifest freight.
The manifest, yeah. And sometimes if they'd run an extra, if they had too many cars to run one, they would run the extra first. So say it was the first day of the month, it was the first, and it was an ENPI in Ola Pittsburgh, it would be an ENPI 1X.
Correct. Yep. And then ENPI would follow it.
Yep. Then the ENPI would follow it.
Because these were pretty much once every 24-hour originations. That's how they look at it.
Yep.
And
Conrail ran scheduled manifest mixed freight.
I think that's an important point for the listeners, is that, we talk a lot about PSR, precision scheduled railroading, which is the modern, we're running on a schedule and it's going to help us efficientize crews and we're going to be able to tie things together. Well, turns out that a lot of railroads have always run schedules, just with certain trains take a higher priority, and so they stay closer to their schedule.
Auto parts trains were a big one. CAPI, EDPI, the PICA, and the PIED. They had auto parts cars on that were time sensitive.
And the same thing on the Chicago line. You had TOMT, MTTO, and there were actually ELSE usually had an auto parts block. And so all of these two, you hear these things we throw around. And what Todd and I are talking about is just origin destination pairs. So ED is Eastern Delaware, or is it Edgemore, Todd?
That was Edgemore. ED was Edgemore. If it went to Wilmington, it was an ES. It was an Eastern Shore.
Eastern Shore. That's what I'm thinking of. Yep. And PI, of course, is Pittsburgh. For all of the Iron City fans out there, there's plenty of trains to and from Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Conway.
Quite a few out of Conway in the day. Let me tell you, it was a busy yard.
Oh man, even this New York Central guy sitting here in New Jersey has got to appreciate Conway Yard in Pittsburgh.
Oh, Dave, you had no idea. You had to talk to 6 people to get out of the yard.
Legendary yard, and this is in the Conrail era after they shut down the second hump, correct?
No, this was both humps were still operating when I hired and worked. They didn't set the second hump down till Norfolk Southern came over.
Wow. So it was one in each direction.
One in each direction. Yep. And like I said, when you would get called out of the hotel to go to Conway, you would go upstairs in the crew room and the conductor would usually be there and he knew where to get it. They would drop a big pack of paperwork down the chute from the upstairs at the clerks. And then he would give you a cover sheet, like you use, like I kind of copied from you. And that's exactly what it looked like. And it had the power on it and where the train was and what tracks it was on and your marker and all that good stuff. And then he had a stack full of paperwork he had to check, make sure the hazmats were all in the right place. And then I would call on the phone over to East Park, and that was the engine house. And you would call over there, and they would give you the engines on what track they're on. And then once you knew where they were at, you'd go walking over there. They had a little building over there. You go inside, look at the chalkboard to see the numbers on it. They were checked off. If they were checked off, that means they were inspected. They were ready to go. You could go get to the engines and do your thing, take your handbrakes off, and then call East Park. Hey, East Park, PIN, power, we're ready to go. And then he'd say, all right, okay, out of the house there, talk to Conway Control. You talk to him. He talk you back 1714 to the hump. You talk to the hump at 4 yard, then you talk to 6 yard, and then you had to talk to 6 yard again to leave, and then you talk to East Conway to get out. And he would give you a track out.
And for all you listeners out there, this is just for a manifest train leaving Conway or any train that would come into Conway and change power.
Yep.
Now,
and when you talk to that, there might be a set of power ahead of you on the 14, they call it 1408. That's the track you had to get down along the car shop to get to the 600 yard. So there might be a power setting there, and he'd tell you that. Well, look out for the power ahead of you.
Yeah,
because there's a train going out of the 600 yard. Then when he gets side on, he goes, and you get your turn. There's two sets of power setting behind you.
Yeah, I mean it was a main line to be all main lines,
yep.
and that again, now that's just the merchandise trains, the manifest freights. Yep. Then you have the piggyback trains, which were another whole series of symbols,
yep.
And those started with the old PRR trail van.
Yep, TV,
and so Conrail intermodal trains largely were called TV dash and then a number.
Yep. And then they had mail trains too. They kept the old PRR mail train.
And then the mail train symbols came along behind it. So even even when the merger happened and you went from Penn Central or PRR to Penn Central to New York Central, Penn Central, they kept those PRR symbols. And even into Conrail, they kept those PRR symbols, even on the Chicago line, even up north.
1978 is when they changed them from like the 2 letters to the 4 letters.
So guys,
where the conversion was.
Let me follow up a little bit with your conversation here and throw it back at model railroading. So let's say I have a freelance. Mm-hmm. We can use all these Conrail language codes or our own language codes and kind of morph them into our own, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave, I also know that your layout can also be a window in time, and you can use these codes and have a Conrail come through. It doesn't mean it started at your layout. It doesn't mean it finishes at your layout. It could just be a through.
And I think through freight. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think people could, they can incorporate that in any way they want to.
I think so too, Pat. And I think, one of the things to keep in mind for anyone that's looking to build some symbols, all these train symbols it's intimidating when you first start to look at it because there's a lot of them. And there's all this data that backs it up and they change based on date. But the thing to remember is that every train on every prototype railroad has a reason it exists.
Right.
It's taken freight or passengers from one place to another. And so it's given a unique name, like you would name a child or you'd name a bus route or you'd name a football team so that you could tell, that, the Hawks are playing the Eagles tonight. Well, that's 2 separate team names. Like my alma mater up at Syracuse, the Syracuse Orange, which is an awful strange name for a team, I have to admit. But they're an old enough college that back when football was in its infancy, you had teams named for their colors. So you had the Browns, you had the Orangemen, right? And so Conrail was naming these trains based on where they're coming from, where they're going to, so that people that looked at it would they heard the ESPI or the OIPI, the Oak Island to Pittsburgh train from New Jersey all the way out to Pittsburgh. That train, when OIPI was on duty, that's what they would call it. Very rarely would you hear just a locomotive number to talk to a train, or just a first name of an engineer or conductor to talk to a train. What you'd hear is Conrail Lehigh Line dispatcher to the OIPI 6621. And that way the crew knew, because they knew they were on the OIPI, so that was their name for the day. Now tomorrow, they're going to be on a different train symbol. But for that night, it's that train symbol. And so this is where resources like that Multimodal Ways website, some of the stuff that J. Alex Lang, the current owner of the Station Inn, who's done a fantastic job up there, he's put some stuff online. There's also stuff at the Conrail Historical Society. There's a bunch of different resources online for people to look this stuff up. But what you're doing for your model railroad is giving a train a name from point A to point B, and each train with a different name is going to have a different purpose.
Right.
So a TV train is going to be truck trailers or auto racks or containers, perhaps. A manifest train with the 2 letters to start, 2 letters to finish is going to be a variety of cars. And depending on the era, that same train might have some auto rack cars or some auto parts cars, like Todd was mentioning before.
And possibly truck train cars.
And it depends on exactly the symbol. So there's a lot of variety.
It was both a mixed freight and a truck train.
So oh, sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, that was the guy that had the auto frames sometimes, right?
He had auto frames, and he'd have truck trailer cars on there too once in a while.
Yeah. Okay.
If those truck trailers missed, like say TV 11 or something, got out and they had more cars for them, and they ran it because it was a scheduled train and it wasn't important stuff, they would throw it on that train with the auto frames because it was going to Toledo to the same place that those truck trailers would have went to begin with.
Yeah, that kind of customer service is something that, boy, I expected everybody to keep doing that once Conrail started it in my youth, watching them fill trains out to tonnage to make sure customers got their car 24 hours earlier.
Yep. I think Pat asked me a question today about what if a car was, I called it misrouting because that's what we called it, misrouted. I got called one night for a special SPL 101 or something like that out of Conway. I had an SD50 and a 60-foot auto parts boxcar.
Wow.
And I was authorized 60 miles an hour with that boxcar.
To go make it work. Sure.
To make it work. It was a shutdown car for Chrysler plant in Delaware. And believe me, they opened the gates. Well, so, and there you go. So, so many people have a small model railroad, a switching model railroad, something where, you're not going to have 25 engines. Maybe you start with just a couple, 1 or 2 or 3. Yep.
Well, here's an example. SPL was a special. It wasn't every day.
Nope.
It was a special move that was authorized by upper management. And here's a 1-car train, an SD50 and a flat car.
No, it was a box car. It was
a box car. Yeah. I mean, how about that? I mean, talk about a Pike-sized train. It's a 1-car train.
Yeah. And to circle back to your original point, Pat, I'll use our West Penn Central Division as an example. It doesn't have to. I mean, we're talking about stuff going from Eastern Shore, which is on the Delmarva Peninsula, I believe, to Pittsburgh. That's probably, 450-mile trip. These don't have to be that long. I mean, we could could do like going from Punxsutawney on the West Penn Central Division to Sharpsburg, which is on the north side, or is it Sharpsburg, that yard? And
Sharpsburg was on the Conemaugh line.
Yeah.
Just east of Pittsburgh on the Conemaugh.
Yeah. So from Punxsutawney down there is I'm sure it's less than 100 miles. It's probably about 70.
Kiski Yard also. Yeah. Kiski Yard's where the
so we could have
come in, but
we could have Punxsutawney PU to Sharpsburg SA Pusa. or Butler. That was that's a yard that would be on the West Penn Central Division. So yeah, as Dave was saying, you just match up 2 city pairs. Where does this freight come from and where does it go to? And that really immediately adds some realism to your yard, especially if you're having, if you're actually doing operations and having a dispatcher you have to talk to. That's how you identify which train is communicating with that. And it also gives it the realism of this train came from one location and is headed to another. It's not just on our layout running around in circles. So
right.
The thing what you're saying, Brett, is that's fine to do that for like that particular train, but like here on the main line, that ATPI, for instance, was just that one train that they added out of Altoona. It's the only train that ran out of Altoona was the ATPI and the PIAT. That's it. There was no other train symbols out of Altoona. They all came from someplace else and worked at Altoona. So like the ENPI, an old Pittsburgh train, would probably set off cars at Altoona for what they needed and set off the PIN back again for pickup. But the reason they ran like the ATPI is because it was so busy with shop cars being brought in from Hollidaysburg, cars out of the Juniata shop, engines out of the Juniata shop that needed to be put west on a train. And that's what they would do, and the PIAT would bring all the local stuff in too. They weren't always big trains. Sometimes they were 25, 30 cars, which is perfect for a model railroad.
Yeah. So, hey, while we have this, now we've talked about all these codes and these different trains. So let me get some opinions here. First, let me back up just real quick and just explain what we got going on with the West Penn between Brad and I. So what Brad and I have, we have two model railroad layouts, one at his house and one at mine. But then we use our club layout when we have shows to make that a whole different division that links our two railroads. So it's kind of a unique concept that we're trying, but I really enjoy that, because what happens is everyone that runs on that show that weekend, we're saying, hey, we got lucky and saw this train come through the Central Division or whatever. So that's kind of a neat concept. But my question back to Dave and to everybody is, what operating, or as a rail fan or operator, what are some unique Conrail trains that you guys would like to model or do model? What really gets you going when you see this train coming down the line?
Man, there's a couple, and I'm sure Todd will chime in too on his railroad. I mean, I just love trains, right? We all, if there's a train, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy watching it go by. But one of the things that's special about Conrail, I think, especially back in the 90s, was that was an era when they were moving all sorts of interesting things.
Yep.
And you could see a windmill train, which would usually be an SPL, and then they would give it a 3-digit number afterwards. One of the things that was really neat is that Conrail, because of the fact that it served the Northeast, and of course it was the Rust Belt, but there was still a lot of industries that made large, expensive things that were still up there. So once a week, and Conrail, if you look at Conrail's map through the 90s and into towards the end of the system, really formed a big X.
Yep.
The heavy duty main lines basically came from Boston through Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, down to Cleveland, and another one that came up from the Harrisburg region, Jersey or Delaware or PA, and then ran out through Pittsburgh up to Cleveland. Cleveland was the X. Media Tower was the that was a spot you could go and see 120 trains in 24 hours.
Yep, easily 120 trains.
And then from Cleveland, you had the upper left part of the X went from Cleveland up through Toledo towards Chicago, Elkhart in Chicago.
Yep, the Chicago line, and then down to St. Louis the other direction.
Down to St. Louis on the bottom leg of that X on the left. So when Conrail, back PRR, New York Central, they had even more trains. But even through the Conrail cuts in the 70s and 80s, they realized they needed to move high and wide stuff, and there was enough stuff to do it 52, 56, 58 times a year. So basically once a week, every once in a while there'd be an extra. So they set up a special network of these high and wide trains that would be instead of a dash at the end with an X or a dash with a number, it would be dash with a D for dimensional.
Yep.
And you had a pair of these trains on each of those X's that would run weekly. And we saw, Todd, I'm sure you got some stories on these guys too. But
when you get ordered for one of them, you were swearing the whole time you were taking a shower. You were swearing the whole time you were eating your breakfast. You were swearing the whole time you were going to Harrisburg in your car, because you knew it was going to be a 12-hour day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You probably wouldn't make it to Altoona with it.
Yep. And these things were so there was a time in Crescent that we were all drinking beers on the front porch, having a wild, crazy old time. And this is in the Norfolk Southern era, but NS has maintained this idea of this dimensional train. and some eastbound train came up, symboled 9. It was like a 92X or something like that.
92X or 92M or 92W or something.
The 900s are the special series trains on NS, just like the SPLs or the dimensional trains were the symbols on Conrail. And this train comes east, and it's got 3 or 4 tank or cars of the M1 Abrams tanks, which were not a whole division. They were probably going. It was a small piece of a military train. Behind this, it's got a series of flat cars carrying structural steel pieces, and the fourth one, which was spliced between drop end gondolas, was an entire turntable, a railroad turntable, up there on the flat car. And behind that is the camp train, like Rapido's new announcement in HO scale. They have the old F-29, F-31 flat cars with the van trailer on there. The camp cars. It was just, this looked like it was straight out of a train show, this train. Like, it's something you'd see on a Lionel 3-rail layout, and you'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, except here it was in real life. There was a full-size turntable on this train. So one of the things I'd like to do going forward on the OC is start to do, not every session, because these are once a week. But it's fun to surprise people with the dimensional train, with something, a transformer, a super flat car, a real special car, on load, a military train. Really need to be able to do some of this stuff going forward.
I have one on my layout. I have 3 carloads of Army tanks. I have a rocket booster, and then I think it's some work equipment, and I forget what else is on it. Can't remember. It's like,
but it's so much fun to be able to share that with people.
You got SPL 202 or something like that. It's an eastbound.
And that was the thing about rail fanning on either one of those legs of that big X that these guys are referring to.
You have no idea what you're going to see.
You never knew what was going to show up at any given time. I can remember.
That's a fact. But
one thing for sure is, and Dave will tell you this, if there was something special coming, the rail fans knew about it. When you've seen a lot of rail fans along the track, there's something weird coming or something special that they're out.
Or you could just be in Crescent, right?
I can remember sitting in downtown Altoona. This would have been back right after the first Gulf War. And I assumed that it was equipment. It was headed west. So I assumed that it was stuff coming back from, and Pat, you probably might have a better idea of this than I do, but I assumed it was stuff coming back from being over in the Middle East and headed back to whatever base it was in. But it was headed west through Altoona with tanks, all kind of trucks and all the stuff that they would need there to wage war. But and I had no idea it was coming. I just decided I was going to rail fan a little bit in Altoona, and surprise, here comes this military train through. So it was always an adventure back in those days. You just, like we said, you never knew what might show up.
One of the trains that was something that they did back in the 80s was the train out of 3 Mile Island.
Oh, with the casks.
With the cask. And it ran every third Sunday. I filmed the first one going across the Rockville Bridge.
Wow. So that's the
2 and 2 carloads of those flasks.
The spent fuel, right?
The spent nuclear waste out of there. Yep. And it was restricted to 25 miles per hour. And when it passed any train, I know it was restricted to 40. But when it passed a train, it had to slow down to 25, and that train had to be stopped.
Wow. For every single
train that came along, the train had to stop, or it had to stop and wait for the freight train to go. And the freight train was only allowed 25 mile an hour passing it. It was it had a caboose. It had a caboose, and there was armed guards on the caboose and in the engine.
Well, there you go. And that leads us into Pat's second question.
Yep, that's right.
Is, how do you use cabooses in the 90s? And military trains had usually the DODX caboose.
DODX cabooses. Westinghouse had their own caboose.
And they had a guy
ride with it.
And just about every Conrail local on depends on how long they'd have to shove. Certain Conrail locals were still taking part in a lot of long shove moves.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly on the Chicago line, I remember a couple trains that ran with cabooses into their early 90s. around Syracuse.
Yep.
And it was the same case, I think, down around you guys in Enola and Pittsburgh for sure.
Yep. The sand train had a caboose on it because you had a long shovel in it. We went to the sand plants and stuff and all that.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up calling them shoving platforms eventually when they no longer were regularly occupied.
Yeah, but
from a modeler standpoint, that looks a whole heck of a lot like a caboose.
Yeah, and I hired there was no armed markers or communication markers. They were no communication marker. You just had to have a flashing light back there. But there was an air gauge on that marker, and the conductor or a car inspector had to do a brake test with you, looking at that little gauge on the marker. It wasn't until the Cajon Pass incident that now trains have to have a communicated armed marker.
Yeah, the two-way. That what year was that, Todd? You remember?
I'm going to say it was in the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah,
and this is
because in 94, 95, and 96 we were still running NC markers, and I remember TV-22 running away on the mountain and crashing at the Horseshoe Curve.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a Tom Piper. He had TV-22. It was Tom Piper, and I can't remember the conductor's name. They called him Pony Toe. He was an older fella, and only the first 9 cars had brakes on them.
Wow.
He stopped at the top, set the air. It made a good blow. Down the mountain he went. When he come off the slide, it kept picking up speed, so he kept adding air. And it just wouldn't slow down, so he kept adding air. And now the whole train's down against him off the slide, and he finally dumped it. They went through MG 52 miles per hour.
Oh boy!
You're
not going to make Horseshoe. Not that speed.
They come off the shoe at 48.
Hey, Todd, speaking of air, are you getting any right now? All right, I just wanted to make sure, buddy. I just wanted to make sure.
We're consistent. That's good. That's good.
Let me follow.
And that's one of the fun things I think operationally on a model railroad too. When one of the things to keep in mind when you guys are out watching trains, all the listeners here on the Iron City, when you guys are out watching trains, what you're seeing is the same stuff that you really can think about modeling when you're home on your railroad.
Right.
It's never a single man operation. It always takes coordination. And this is dangerous stuff. This is heavy equipment moving on a long hill.
Yep. I've already had 2 trains get away from me on the mountain, and I actually recovered both of them. So,
man.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's got to wake you up.
Let me follow up just real quick on your caboose question. So it's early 90s, or I'm doing late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if to our listeners, if there were anybody's in the modeling in that era, I can't go wrong with a caboose on one and a marker on the other train, maybe even following each other or behind each other, or
absolutely.
crossing.
Absolutely, you can. Yep.
And the thing to remember,
if you come here in mine, I got cabooses and markers on both of them. So,
and you got to remember too. I mean, and Todd will back this up. There's not Conrail was a big railroad, big Class 1 operation, and nothing happened overnight. Even implementing rules, even that would take time. So as they would buy more of these end-of-train devices, sure, more trains would have an end-of-train device put on there, but then one would fail and they'd tack a caboose on, or they had enough to do half the trains, but not all. So a lot of conductors were called for the rear end.
A lot of the cabooses still had the lights, the markers. They had to have a flashing light on it. So they just use a caboose with a flashing light. They weren't rideable. The seats were missing in them and everything else. They were just a shelf. They just stacked it on the back because it had an air gauge back there and a marker.
It had a marker.
Light.
So if one question that I kind of know this concept, but I did want to, when Pat brought up about cabooses, I wanted to ask you guys because you probably know much better than I do. I've heard a lot the term shoving platform, and I have some idea of what that is, but can you guys explain exactly one of it? It doesn't matter to me, either one.
Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Explain what that means exactly.
Well, a shoving platform is usually an old abandoned caboose that they just repainted, and we had a thing called a backup hose. And what it was this long hose that connected to the hose on the rear of the caboose, and you'd run the air in it. And it had a angle cock on it, and it would hang off the platform of the caboose or the shoving platform, because that's what the old cabooses used. And if the conductor wanted the engineer to stop, he just opened that angle cock and let the air bleed on, and he would apply the brakes from the rear end of the train.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
So that would be one way to extend the time frame on which it would be legitimate to have a caboose on your layout, to call it a shoving platform,
Work trains
correct?
always had cabooses on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And and when Conrail took over the Monongahela Railroad in 1996, some of those Monongahela cabooses migrated here because they were in better shape. And I had them on my work trains when I worked the work trains and I was laying rail or dropping ties.
neat.
You'd have a Monongahela caboose on the rear of the train. So
Wow.
my work train down here has a Monongahela caboose on it.
I love it.
You know,
So
that's
guys,
what they were platforms. They were basically leftover cabooses that were stripped out, and they'd repaint them to clean them up and make them look nice. Some of them weren't. Some were in the urban areas. They didn't bother because they were going to get graffitied or tagged anyway, so they didn't care.
So that goes into, I have a bonus question this evening to kind of round us out a little bit. We're seeing a lot of manufacturers in the model railroad industry now doing pre-rolling stock cars with, a lot of rust and weathering of old names that you could put on your layout.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 1990. What names were we still seeing? Were we still seeing Pennsylvania on Conrail? What are some names that you would still see maybe as a weathered box car, or, would you see a Lehigh Valley still in the 90s?
Yes.
What would you still see?
You would see PRRs, Reddings, Erie Lackawannas, Lehigh Valleys. Now they were weathered and dirty, and mostly they were for non-revenue things, because by this time they were getting pretty much aged out. But there was still you'd still see a PRR boxcar once in a while. You'd still see a Penn Central boxcar.
Yeah, and it really hung in there on the gondolas.
Yep, and the gondolas really held up because they had a lot of those. But
They had a lot of those, and it hung in there on the covered hoppers as well.
Yep,
So
covered hoppers also.
when Conrail formed, they really were very short on updated cars. The predecessor railroads were largely bankrupt. So right towards the end, you ended up with Penn Central buying or leasing a whole bunch of covered hoppers.
Yep.
And they even had different reporting marks: PCA, PCB.
Yep.
And those they showed up painted Penn Central, but then Conrail came in and they spray painted them quick and changed the paint job. But by the 1990s, we called it ghosting.
Yeah,
you would see all sorts of ghosts.
Paint would wash off because they used cheap paint, and then it would eventually fade away or fade off or weather off, and you would see the Penn Central green showing through.
So basically, you would see gondolas, especially. You could see Penn Central, PRR. You could see Erie Lackawanna. Yep. Those were all over the place. Ballast cars.
We have Valleys quite a bit too. I used to see a lot of them now.
Yep, some of them as well. Absolutely.
And one other thing that you wouldn't be able to model this on a moving train, but if you had a deadline somewhere, I could I think it was I was out of college, I think, and going out to Altoona, and just across from the shops was the deadline where they used to freaking park everything. Penn Central, Pensy, New York Central, the Lightnings. I even saw, there was a set of lightning strike F units sitting there, rusted badly, but this would have been still like in 1993, which is how many years? It's 20. What would that be? I'd have like 25 years, right, after the merger.
Oh, absolutely. And there was a not Western Maryland. There was a Erie Lackawanna GP35 that was in that deadline until probably 1996 or 1997.
It was there for a long time. Yeah.
It was the last one that wasn't painted black or blue. So, Pat, to answer your question, one of the cool things about Conrail is that a lot of the stuff that us modelers love to do has a prototype on Conrail. You can, you got to weather them up. Todd's right. There's nothing that was clean that was a predecessor road. One of the
things you did not see was a lot of graffiti.
True, and that really until 1995, you saw some chalk graffiti. You saw Herbie.
Yep.
You might see a few other guys that would have a chalk symbol, wax symbol from the car shop, but there was very little graffiti on rail cars.
Very little graffiti at all. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point, Todd.
So Dave, on your layout, I know you have a lot of main line. operation. So how do you do those ratios of maybe throwing some old? Is it just based on your historical knowledge, or do you like to throw something in there every once in a while just to get the fans when you do maybe your live videos and stuff, just to get a little bit of juices going? Hey, I finally got to see a Lehigh Valley come through there, or you know what I mean?
There's a little bit of that.
How do you do that? Yeah.
There's a little bit of that, Pat. It's a good call. We really do try and stick to, one of the things that makes a model railroad operation plausible is sticking to the plain Janes. You really need to make sure that every day on the Chicago line, you see TV9, you see TV13, you see ELSE and NPSC, North Platte to Selkirk. That was a Union Pacific CNW run-through train. So it would routinely have UP or CNW power mixed in with the Conrail power. So we looked forward to it because it was routinely something interesting to see. But when you're doing an operating session, you want some plain Jane stuff, but you can take some risks. And one of the great things to do, the internet is your friend if you're looking for this kind of stuff now. It is incredible the amount of old VHS tape, somebody's shoulder-mounted VHS camcorder from 1985 or 1987 or 1992.
I got over 100 of them.
Up and down the Chicago line, all over the Pittsburgh line. And these guys digitize it and throw it up online.
Yep. And
a lot of them have enough of the train going by that you can get some feel for what was out there. So I've worked with Lenny Harlows. He's a New Jersey modeler. He's very gifted with weathering and ghosting. And I've done a couple decoder installs for him in exchange for him patching and painting a bunch of my cars. And so now I've got some real high-end ghosting EL cars and PRR New York Central cars. And you can surprise your operators with these. I wouldn't use them in every session because, again, it's fun to be surprised. And they weren't on every train. But when they showed up, it was really cool to be able to see.
Is that kind of like being surprised by an Australian double-ended F unit that shows up on your layout when somebody's in town?
It's kind of like that. And Marty, when you hear this, buddy, we had so much fun with you down in Brisbane. You guys on the podcast here know, but the listeners may not, that I took my family down to Australia. We had a 3-week epic adventure to see some close family that lives in South Australia. And on the way back, we were able to stop in Brisbane, which is the city, outside of which Marty Jenkins lives. And we even took part in the Australasian Region NMRA convention. My boys and I, all three of us, we had a blast. And Marty was a great host. If you guys ever get a chance to go to Brisbane, you got to. Australia is a great trip. It's really an interesting place to visit as an American because they speak the language, and so it's not as intimidating as it might seem at other places. But it's just different enough to keep you on your toes. It's a really beautiful country with friendly people, and Marty and his wife Mary were just the best hosts. We had so much fun. So much fun. You see a double-ended F unit on the OC, and it opens your eyes.
Especially when it's during a Facebook Live.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That's perfect.
But if I could just editorialize a bit, isn't what you're talking about, Dave? Isn't that that's the overall overarching goal of why we do all this? It's those connections you make, the friendships you make, the camaraderie you make, and it's amazing to think about how model trains have unified people, including someone like Marty, who's become a good friend to all of us, who lives literally halfway, probably more than halfway around the world from us. And here we are all enjoying the hobby together. And just that unity and camaraderie to me is what it's all about. Just those kind of things, and the kind of thing you're talking about with Marty, having a friend that far away who's there to host you and help you around when you're halfway around the world in a place that you're not familiar with. It makes it feel like home anyway.
I think there's nothing could be said that's more true than what you just said, Brad. And this is where, look, to be very clear, very grateful for opportunities to bring people together. This hobby is loaded with them, and it's in the model railroad radio. And you look at Railroad Model Craftsman, trains, even the Atlas Rescue Forum, trains.com, the forums there.
The old rail wire was one
right. All of these things. And of course, not to mention NMRA meets, conventions, regional conventions, modelers meets, the whole RPM, Railway Prototype Modelers meets. All of this stuff at its best brings people together. And I think that showcases the power of what this hobby can do.
It's about coming together with friendship and people coming and enjoying trains and talking to trains, and that's what makes this hobby, as far as I'm concerned, the best hobby in the world.
Yep.
And you guys are taking a leadership role by allowing generations to be part of it, but also by doing it in a way that includes other people rather than finds reason to divide other people. The hobby offers a spot where all of us that love trains can come together, find something in common, and knock off the division and the petty jealousy and the ego con.
Okay, guys. Hey, I've got to put a lid on this so we can have volume 3. So I know you guys want to come back for volume 3, and I think our listeners will want to have that too. And I just really appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Well, it's just so much fun to be able to share, and contrast stories with you guys. Todd, it is such a pleasure. The joy in your voice is so much fun to listen to and be part of. And I really appreciate the service that you guys, Brad and Pat, are doing for the hobby. Opening up a channel like this that allows for creative freedom. It doesn't require any ego entry fee. You don't. We're just being ourselves here, and it really is a pleasure to be with people that don't have a manifesto to defend.
That's well said, and it's good for us too. I'm glad you guys enjoy being on it, because it's, as you mentioned, with everything that's going on in the world today, it's just nice to be able to sit. It's like we just sat down on somebody's front porch tonight and chewed the fat, as Marty Jenkins said the last time he was on here. He said that's Australian for talking. But it's I mean, you need to do stuff like this just for the fun of it.
And that said, you want to make a difference, you want to find a way to make things better and open up some doors for hope.
Yep.
You start right here in the hobby. You talk to your buddies and you come around the table. You have what we're doing tonight is exactly what people need. When you're upset, don't close your doors.
Nope.
You got to open your doors, look outside, and believe in your fellow man. There's a lot of people here that we have a lot more in common than the media would like you to believe.
And that's the beauty of this hobby, because that's something we can all easily focus on, that we all do have in common. We all love trains. Big trains, little trains, all trains, we love them, and that's what we need to focus on.
Well, guys, Hey guys, we're going to have to say goodnight. Yeah, we're going to say goodnight, and Brad and I will be right back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Brad, I don't know about you, but I ran out of paper. And the ink was getting a little dry there at the end. Man, we had a lot of notes tonight, a lot of great explanations too of what's going on from real life railroad to your hobby, to your layout, how to do things, how to list things. I know you and I do that a lot with the West Pin. How I do my Panhandle East, Panhandle West, and the number tells you what train's moving through, or if it's a central, it's a Central East, Central West, and the number, early numbers are in the morning, double digit numbers are normally in the afternoon. It's just a way of doing things like the real railroad used to do. And I think people want to put that on their layout. I think it adds another dimension, which I think is enjoyable with that.
Yeah,
so great show tonight.
And it's great. It's great when you have two guys like Dave and Todd who have so much information that they can share, but are able to do it in a way that's interesting.
Right.
They don't just drone on and kind of lull you to sleep. It's always very interesting to listen to both those guys. And I think the advantage that you and I have, Pat, is we can tell them, pretend you're talking to two 5-year-olds. And it's not hard for them to imagine when they're talking to us that they are talking to two 5-year-olds. So,
Yeah, it's like,
we
wait a minute,
appreciate
what did you
so
say?
much those guys. Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of good information that they're willing to share,
Absolutely.
both about the prototypes that they work for, but also, that they have stuff that they could share with us about model railroading and how to put together a super really good working model railroad layout, because they both have that. So always great to talk to those guys and just to be able to tap into the sources of information that they have, the inside jargon, and the expertise that both of those guys have from their respective careers. It's always great to hear from them.
That's right, Brad. And I know you have a pretty good final thought tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and tell our listeners how to get a hold of us and where to listen to us, and then I'll come back to you for that good story that I think you're going to have tonight for your final thought. So, hey, if you're trying to get a hold of us, we're on the Iron City In Scale page on Facebook. That's Iron City In Scale. If you're trying to get us on a podcast for the Iron City Roundhouse Report, and we are found on almost anywhere you get your podcast, but we're at especially Apple, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, and Boomplay. And I know Brad and I are just getting started on YouTube, and we're hoping to hopefully get some videos of layouts and some things that we're doing, maybe incorporate some of our Iron City videos over to YouTube here shortly. So I know Brad and I are really starting to work that, and we've gotten our minimums so we can start doing live broadcasts if we want to on YouTube, or if we want to do train videos on there. So a lot to look forward to on YouTube. We're just scratching the surface on that as we learn how to build this social media presence. But, for and foremost, we are on Iron City. So if you need to talk to Dave or Todd or Brad or myself, you can always just send us a note, DM us on Facebook on our Iron City page. So with that, Brad, I am going to give you the final thought for this evening, because I know you got a great one.
Yeah, just one thing quick. I did want to say thanks to everybody who we needed to reach a minimum number of subscribers to be able to take full advantage of that streaming platform on YouTube. And I asked the morning of one day, and before lunch that day, our Iron City community came through, and we had more subscribers than we needed. So thanks to everybody for that. But
thank you.
That guys. Kind of embodies what the Iron City community is about. If you need anything in the hobby from them that they can deliver, all you have to do is ask, and you receive quickly. And that kind of segues, I guess, into the next thing I wanted to talk about. You and I got a really nice Facebook message from one of our younger guys, Connor Deerdorf, and I just wanted to share this with our group, because this kind of embodies what Iron City's all about too. So here's the message we got from Connor. I'm going to read it here. It says, "Hey guys, I wanted to drop a community suggestion for the post Altoona Roundhouse Report segment in the podcast. As you guys know, I had car trouble on Friday on the way in, meaning on his way into the show, which threw a wrench in my plans and risked derailing things. You guys also know that Tom, that would be Tom Catalano, one of our founding members, happened to be nearby and was able to pick me up and my modules and get me to the convention center before setup time ended. What I don't think has had enough recognition yet was the reaction from the rest of the group. All weekend, it felt like people were practically falling over each other with offers for assistance or for advice or assistance unsolicited just because they heard my predicament. While I'm certainly thankful for Tom giving me a ride the rest of the way to Altoona, I want to make it known that I'm also extremely appreciative of everyone else who offered assistance in one way or another. I think that speaks very highly to the community we have created here at the Iron City, that so many people were willing to answer a call for help. I'm endlessly grateful that I can be part of such a group of people, and I will continue to uphold the same kindness I was shown that weekend. On a more personal note, I wanted to thank both of you and the rest of the original members for creating such a friendly and supportive group. My personal experience of this past weekend has made it clear that the Iron City group goes beyond just a regular club for train nerds, that this is a social and thriving community of friends and acquaintances brought together for a love for everything railroads. From what I have heard about the early Iron City history, that is something that started from day one and has grown since. And I wanted to take this chance to thank you guys for starting such a group and for continuing to lead by example. So thank you, Connor, very much for the kind words on that. That is appreciated. And we are really glad that you were able to make it to the show for a variety of reasons. First, we're just glad that you were there, but also something pretty exciting happened to Connor that weekend. Every year at the Altoona N-Scale weekend, they have a best of show contest where anybody from any modular layout that sets up there, and there were several of them there this weekend, anybody who has a module on any of those layouts is eligible to enter, and then a voting takes place, and the module that gets the most votes ends up getting the pretty prestigious Best of Show award for the Altoona N-Scale weekend. And this year, that was Connor who won that. So not only do we want to thank Connor for the nice message that he sent us, we want to thank Tom for getting Connor there. I believe he picked him up in Indiana, PA, if I remember correctly, and got him to Altoona in time for setup. So not only was Blake there, but his Best in Show module was there. Not Blake, sorry, Connor. Connor was there. Not only was Connor there, but his Best in Show module was there, and he was able to win that award. Iron City.
Brad, that's 2 out of 3 years we've won best module. So that's a pride thing right there. We're very proud of Connor for accomplishing that. Brad, we also raised a bunch of money over the weekend. Over $300 was total raised for our internal module contest. When we really appreciate everyone that participated in that.
And we should probably also give a big shout out to the winner of that too. The Iron City contest module contest was won by our very own Colonel Patrick Moore. So congratulations to you on your victory there. Pat built a pretty Connor's module, by the way, was the Iron City incline model, kind of after the inclines out in Pittsburgh on the south side there. But so that was Connor's module that won Best in Show. But Pat is starting a project that I think a lot of us are going to jump on board with, which is to have the standard T-track tracks on the front of the module, but then back deeper to have an elevated, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's an elevated trolley type line or
a T line,
whatever you call it. Like the T out in Pittsburgh. So kind of a non-standard module, but it's going to be both a scenery element, which you can do whatever you want with scenery elements on T-track, but it also is going to be a running track once we get enough of those to have more than just one module. Your module was the only one at the N-Scale weekend that had that, but hopefully at our next outing, maybe a few more guys will have modules like that they can snap into yours. So congrats to you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Take home that prize. You bet.
Yeah. All right, Brad. I think that's all the time we have today. So you want to wrap us up?
Yep. Just want to say thanks to everybody who showed up and talked to us at the Altoona N-Scale weekend, but also we don't want to forget a very, very special thanks to Dave Abeles and Todd Treaster for being with us on this episode it's an episode of the Roundhouse Report, but it's also volume 2 of their special segment that they're kind enough to do with us called the Office Car Special, which I think we explained what that is before, but the Office Car Special was the office train on Conrail that Todd was fortunate enough to be able to drive. And then we were at an op session up at Dave's place in New Jersey on the Onondaga Cutoff, and the first time Dave ran an HO scale office car special, he allowed Todd to drive that. So it was just a neat thing that we thought could springboard us into this office car special segment that we're going to have. We'll have those guys back again because I know everybody enjoys listening to them. So that is volume 2 of the office car special, and we thank everybody for listening. And we appreciate all of our listeners, and we're going to sign off now and say thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report / Office Car Special. Thank you and have a great evening. All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.